Okay, so I got in this trade and I thought I'd go ahead and hit record so that you can hear me walk through what's happening. And just really what I want to try to convey is just how simple the box is to trade. So basically what I did was get in short. You can see here we have a red arrow and I'm short, and so each of these levels here, so I'm short 10, I've got 5 to exit at 16.30 and a quarter. I've got 3 to exit at the next dotted line at 16.29, and then I have 2 remaining contracts to exit at 16.26 and a half. So while this is happening, we're coming out of some consolidation. Now we could very well head up and this could stop me out. I think there's a pretty good chance we're going to test our lows of the day. And this is why I have my last exit at 16.26 and a half. But all the while, whether that happens or not, I want to make sure that I am taking profit that the market's going to give me on the way down. So we've hit my first exit, hasn't filled me yet. Market's been super slow up to this point, and I think we're going to gain some momentum sometime in the next 5 to 15 minutes, and that's kind of what I'm banking on. Now that's regardless, or that has nothing to do with the box. It's just more my interpretation of market movement. But while this is happening, let me just review really quickly what the box is and what it does, and then I'll keep this going. I'm not going to pause this. I'm just going to let it run however long this takes. It could be 5 minutes, could be 15 minutes, could be longer. So we'll just let this thing go. So while this trade's forming, okay, so there it filled my first exit. So at this point, I'm going to leave my stop loss alone. Now there are situations where I will secure profit, but I don't typically do that until we get to our next target. So once we get there, I'll kind of assess what the market's doing, and if it starts to pick up, I'm probably going to leave it. We'll see. We'll handle that when that time comes. But the box, when a box forms, what it does is it tells us as traders that a high probability trade is forming. So there's 3 things that the box does. Number 1, it tells us that there's a high probability trade that is forming, not that has formed, but that is forming, meaning that this is a real-time indicator. This is not lagging BS like a lot of you traders are used to. This detects real-time activity. It's very specific, and there are several dozen factors that it looks at. So it tells us as a trader that a high probability trade is forming, okay, and so this box will form. And if you're wondering how I get these annotations, I've gone in after the fact and added them in. So that's number 1. It tells us a high probability trade is forming. And then number 2, it reveals to us a high probability direction, which is revealed to us by these arrows. And then the dotted lines that you see where I took my first exit at, what these show us are high probability targets, or we use them as exits. So these dotted lines are, I guess you could look at them as a dynamic support and resistance price levels. And so they're, as you can see, they are very reactive. They're highly reactive. The market respects them. And so because of that, we want to make sure that we are positioned to take profits when price reaches these levels. This short trade that happened about an hour before this current short that I'm in, it only reached the first target. And so this is an example of why. And then this next short that happened, which I didn't take, as you can see, this one made it to the second green line and it bounced off, pretty significantly. So these dotted lines will reveal to us in real time where the highest probable price area is that the market will have a reaction to. And as I mentioned, I've got my last target at 1626 and a half because, based upon my market analytics, I think we're going to test our lows. Whether we break them or not, I don't know. But I don't care about that. What I care about, obviously, is making money, just like all of you do. And so what I'm showing you here is how to do it. Okay, so once again, the box reveals to us a high probability trade is forming. And then we don't get into the trade until the arrow appears. That I should have thought about recording prior to the time I started, but it's kind of a last minute afterthought. I thought it'd be nice to kind of see this, and I'll walk you through it. And the good thing about it, here I'm talking during a trade, and everything's already decided. I've already decided the risk in this trade, and that's what's really nice about the box, is that it's already predetermined. My risk on this trade, my stop loss, it's a protective stop at 15.33 and a quarter. I've already accepted that. It's already predetermined. I don't have to worry about that. And the profit levels, the reason why I like to scale out is because a lot of these will run. The box is very good at detecting this type of activity, and if you go back in history, I'll go back through today after this trade's over. I'll show you exactly what it does. And so I like to scale out to take advantage of that. And then as price progresses to each of the next levels, generally I'll bring my stop loss to secure profits. So at this point, we really need to make it to the second level for me to consider moving my stop loss at this point, because a lot of times what will happen is price will come back to the midpoint, as we call it, which is the red line. So starting to gain a little bit of momentum, not quite yet. We're just ticking down a tick or two away from my next exit. And then if we can get there, I think we should pick up in volume, and there's a pretty good chance we'll get to that last one. We'll see. And depending on what happens, I might pull out early, but as of right now, I'm going to leave it. Okay, so we're to the tick of my exit. Now we've got to get filled though. Okay, so we broke it and filled. Okay, so last exit is staying put. I'm going to take my stop loss and put it one tick below my entry. So if this slams back up, see, because right now we're testing this low. Okay, so if this slams back up, it's going to get me out for one tick profit on 2 contracts. Sometimes people ask when I do recordings like this, is that live, real time? I mean, is that market replay? What's the deal? You doing this for real? So right now it's 13:43, so 1:43 in the afternoon. I'm in Mountain Time Zone, and here's timeanddate.com, Denver, Friday, 1:43 p.m. This is a real-time website. You can go to it yourself and see it for yourself. Okay, 1:43. So yes, real time right now. It's a real deal. So those of you that tend to be somewhat skeptical, there you have it. Okay, so on my first exit, I took a full point on half of my contracts. The second exit was 2 1/4, and then so as you can see, right now we're testing this low, and so what we're going to want to happen is for price to close below it, and hopefully gain some momentum, and this should help push it to test the low of the day. I don't know that we'll get much past it. Just some other tools that I use. We've got some pretty major support down there, so I wouldn't be surprised if we get close to that 26, 25 and a half, something like that, and then maybe have some type of reversal. That's not box information. That's totally separate. But just in keeping with the simplicity of the box, there's really not much to it. Okay, we wait for a box to form. This tells us, as I mentioned before, a high probability trade is forming, and then our trigger, the way that we trade it, is we wait for an arrow. That arrow reveals to us the most likely direction. Okay, so in other words, the highest probable direction. And as a trader, you want probability on your side. The greater the probability, the greater the chance that you have of making money, which is why we do this in the first place. Okay, all the other things are just other nuances that are really besides the point. And that's it. So we get an arrow, boom. Okay, obviously we got a short, an arrow down, the red arrow, and so I'm in. And almost always I'll get in that market. This one, as you can see, I got in a couple bars later because we're coming out of, when you trade consolidation like this, and we've, prior to this trade actually running, we sat in this sideways channel for about over an hour. And I'm not a fan of getting into that stuff. So what I'd like to do is to see if, can volume pick up? Is this, a true movement? And so that's why I got in a little bit later, because when we had the red bar with the red arrow, wasn't quite there yet, and we didn't quite make it to the blue line. So it was a pretty good opportunity to get in. So that's this trade. Every trade's a little bit different. Okay, so we're coming back to this, this, I call these micro lows because it's not the low of the day. But we'll see. As I mentioned, these dotted lines, they're very accurate for support and resistance. So it's very possible that we've broken now. If we come back up and test this, it could act as resistance. But we'll see. So at this point, I'm leaving everything alone. I still think that there could be some increased volume and get one more push to test these lows here. Now, had that not been my thought process in this case, what I would do is I would actually move my stop loss, which is now profit, to one tick below the blue line, and so that would secure just over a point on the last two, and that's fine. Take that. But I'm gonna give it some breathing room just in case it wants to come back up and test the blue line, which it can. And I'm just gonna leave it alone. So those of you watching this, maybe for the first time, you're trying to figure all this out. Just keep it simple. We don't need to analyze the market. I am mentioning some other market analytics stuff, but it's just because it's what I do. But you don't necessarily even need to know anything about the market. What the box does is it analyzes the market for you. And so what we've done is we've taken our knowledge of market analysis and figured out a way to detect some very specific, in fact unique, real-time market activity and put it in this indicator we call a box. And so that's what it does for you. It analyzes the market for you. When a box forms, as I mentioned, it tells us that there's a high probability trade that's forming, and then as soon as we get the arrow, that tells us the highest probable direction, and our reaction as a trader, what we'd like to do is just to get in. This happens to be the S&P. I personally like trading a 612 tick chart. It's very fluid. There's a lot of volume. You're going to have, I don't know, a couple million contracts a day on the ES. And so there's going to be no problem. 10 contracts, 1 contract, 100 contracts, you'll have no problem getting filled. And I chose 10 just to kind of keep it, realistic. A lot of people trade more than that. Some people trade less than that. So 10 seemed like a happy medium to do a recording with. So we wait for the arrow, we get in, and what you didn't see is I already have a setup. So basically, within NinjaTrader, you have what are called ATM setups that you can create. It's very simple, and so I have a stop loss set, and I have 3 exits are automatically set. And so then what I do when I get into the trade, I immediately move those. So initially, if I'm short, I'm going to place a stop loss 1 tick above the box just to give it some breathing room. And then my exits, as I've mentioned in the beginning, I like to scale out. And generally I like to scale out with three separate exits. Sometimes I'll do 2, but typically when that happens, I'm just dragging my 3rd one up. And I do that because maybe I think that it's run out of steam. And at this point, we're kind of just sitting here. I'm somewhat tempted to just get out of this thing, but for the sake of illustration, I'm going to leave it so that you can see what happens here. So back to to finish what I was saying, we get the arrow, we get into the market, we're either going to sell market or buy market. Again, what I'm explaining to you is how we do it. You might find a better way to do it. If you do, man, I hope you let us know. But the way that we do this is extremely effective and very profitable. So then we just look at these dotted lines for exiting our trades. Sometimes I'll put my exit a tick above if I'm short, just to make sure, because they are very reactive. Sometimes they go to the tick, like this long right up here before the short happened. Pretty much just got to the tick of the blue line. And so I want to make sure I get filled. But anytime we break through congestion like this, you're generally going to have an increased volume. So we're got a tick away from my last exit. So I was fortunately right. So when this happens here, we're just going to sit there. I tend to just leave it. I'm going to leave my stop loss alone. I don't want any erratic movement. We've got cash equities in about 10 minutes. So that should have some pretty good movement. So if you trade cash equities, actually less than 10 minutes. A day like today with everything that's going on, the Syria crap and everything else, I would anticipate some decent movement. Plus we have a holiday weekend, so you're going to have a lot of people liquidating prior to the holiday coming up. So we're pushing 17, 18 or so minutes into this trade, and this is kind of a longer one. Every trade's different. Some are going to be just a few minutes, some are this long. It's really just going to depend on how you choose to take profits. Obviously, I've explained how I'm taking profits on this particular trade. But what's really nice about using the box is, you can be quite relaxed. There's not really a whole lot of emotion involved when everything's already laid out for you. The entries are laid out, the exits are laid out. I've already determined my, the risk I'm gonna, willing to risk on this trade. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's it. That was the last, the remaining 2 contracts of 10. And this trade, let me look at my other screen real quick. Okay, so this trade produced $1062.50, $1,062.50, $1,062.50. After commissions, I'm still over 1,000. And on the ES, this was actually the first trade I took today, as you can see. But that's it. It's really that straightforward. All the other trades, had I done the other trades that you see on the screen here, it would have been the same thing. Exactly what you saw me do just there. I wouldn't have done anything different. Everything is exactly the same. I approach every trade the same. I scale out. I really do try to stay away when the volume's low, even though you can win trades when there's low volume. But that's really the only, and see, here we go. We hit 1625.5. I'm not sure we'll get much lower than this. I've got some pretty major support down here, but we might blow through that. But I think we're going to have a pretty decent rebound here. But that's besides the point. Box trades are simple. We, simply look at these opportunities and we get into them. We take profits, and that's it. Every trade's the same. And so let's go. Actually, just real quick. Just want to reiterate that this is real time, so 13:55, so 1:55 Mountain Time. pull up timeanddate.com. So Denver, Friday, 1:55 in the afternoon. So again, those of you that, is this real time right now? Yeah, it's right now. So let's go back and take a look at these trades. So overnight session, this trade here ripped out 15 points plus. This one over 11 points. If you're looking at the full run from potential entry, this one was the first trade during the RTH hours, and it pulled out 9 points to its peak. This next trade, this one pulled out 5 points at its peak, and this next one pulled out about 4. Yeah, this one pulls out 2 points, and this one barely makes it to the first dotted line. This one you would have lost. You would have gave back what you made on the previous trade. And this one makes it to the second dotted line, the green line. This long did not stop yet. It gets to the bottom of this box, as you can see here. Barely makes it to the blue line, and then this one was the one that you saw me take. And that's it. It's literally, today, you're looking at, if you consider the overnight trades, you're looking at 49 points max. Obviously you're not going to get all that. If you look at the trades during the RTH, the one I took plus the ones I showed you, it's somewhere in the ballpark of 22.5 points. Now it's going to depend on where you pull out. Some of you will kind of do what I did on this trade and really maximize it. As you can see, we've got about a point past my exit, and we're starting to bounce just like I had anticipated. That's besides the point. And then others of you, maybe you're going to take smaller profits, but even at a third of what was available today, you're still looking at 7.5 points on the day. It doesn't take a lot of days to do that to really have some nice returns. And what I did on this trade, anybody can do it. I don't have any special knowledge that no one else couldn't have. The box, again, it's very simple. It tells us that a high probability trade is forming. These arrows that you see tell us the most probable direction, the highest probable direction that the market will go in. And as you can see, it nails it. It is dead accurate. And this is not just today. This is every single day. Some days are big, other days are small. Small days we just take smaller profits. The big days we try to do what I showed you here. Today was really not that big of a day. We just had a somewhat decent run. It was only a 6-point run from my entry, and I got 4.75 on my last contracts of that. It's not difficult to do. How did I know to get out at 1626.5? Well, because we have a target there, and so I want to get out, and that's where I put my exit, and that's it. It's literally that simple. There's nothing more to it than that. If there is anything difficult about it, it's learning how to use the software, which I would presume most people watching this already know how to do. So get the box while it's cheap. New site's launching very quickly, and it'll go to its regular price. Just click the link below and contact us with any questions.